Hello, beautiful souls. This is Pauline Marie from Cosmic Currents. I hope you are all doing well, and thank you so much for being here. I am here to talk about the total lunar eclipse. It's a full moon. It's a blood moon. This is coming up on March 3rd, 2026 in the 10th house, which is Midheaven. So this is just after our huge planetary alignment, our new birth point, our Genesis moment, our complete reset. And I hope you all have journeyed through that with much ease and grace that can be offered to you. So this 10th house, Midheaven, we have to talk about that a little bit because traditionally it governs career. I like to think of career. I don't think of careers traditionally anymore. I think of it all as service to others. But this also represents how we're seen in the world then, in our service. And then what are our goals? What are the successes that we've had? And it's also about how our relations to others directly impact the collective trajectory now. Especially now that we're into this new energy. We're at least receiving it, right? It's at least a choice point for you to be in this frequency. So it's fun to look at the numerology here as well, because this is occurring at 11:34 AM UTC. So 11 being a master number, that never gets reduced. And then the 34, of course, reduces to a 7. So this is an 11/7. The other really cool thing is that this is occurring directly over the Pacific Ocean, directly over the Hawaiian Islands. And there's actually 137 island points and egresses. If you Google that, they actually account for like 137 different variables with the islands. And so that also reduces to an 11. So a lot of ascended master energy coming in here with what I call octave 7, which is that midpoint of heaven. So this will be seen everywhere except for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. So that also there's no synchronicities anymore. So that's also an interesting thing for anyone that might want to explore deeper meanings about that. But this is an eclipse that's in harmonic with Uranus and Pluto, in support of Saturn and Neptune again, and all of those major planets down there are just opposite the moon. So embracing change, again, yes, transformational times, regeneration, rebirth, profound change, preparing our vessels, clearing the noise, surrender and trust the unseen, and resting in the I am presence are all still those viable new frequencies that came out of that planetary alignment. So this eclipse energy, as it is in Virgo, acts as an intense emotional clearing. It's forcing the release of perfectionism, and there's always layers of that to release, right? And the release of self-sabotaging habits and any limiting beliefs. And as a South Node eclipse, it focuses on shedding the past. It sheds the past completely to completely empty our vessels to embrace the new. It's compassionate, it's an intuitive path, and it aligns us with that North Node in Pisces that will be coming in the next moon. I believe the moon after this eclipse is a new moon in Pisces. So there are some key astrological themes, of course, if you just look on the surface of this, and it's a Virgo-focused eclipse. It demands that final cleanup of any messy, chaotic, or overly restrictive areas in our life. So we could look at this again as it being karmic release, and it marks that time of accumulation, of endings, and that letting go of what no longer serves our higher purpose. There is the emotional integration piece, as that blood moon energy encourages that shift from a rigid, intellectual, controlled Virgo to trusting inner guidance and embracing more emotional vulnerability, Pisces. And then, of course, we have a Mercury retrograde, so a Mercury-ruled influence here. Also, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so this eclipse may bring some surprising information, or conversely that's you to stop overthinking and simply trust the process. And I'm really feeling that's where the emphasis is. I follow, some frequencies out there, and it's always like, oh, the surprise is coming. It's like, no, just trust the process. Because that can really put us into a waiting kind of energy instead of I'm already there kind of energy. This will impact certain signs, mostly our mutable signs: Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius. They'll probably feel this a little bit more strongly, especially if they're along the Virgo-Pisces axis. If you want really specific astrological information, there's plenty of it out there. I don't deem to be an expert in anything related to astrology. I'm mostly like downloading and deciphering and streamlining for you guys what could show up for you and what to focus on during this time. So even some actionable advice will just be to just kind of declutter your physical and mental bodies, and letting go, of course, and just resting. Eclipse energy can be kind of draining. So a lot of focus on self-care right now rather than pushing through anything. So let's talk a little bit more about the numerology download that I received. This master path, this 11/7, this master number is a life path of spiritual awakening, which is really what this is all about. And it can be challenging because of this intense inner conflict between this powerful intuition that we're gaining and that struggle to ground spiritual insight into practical reality. It can lead us to anxiety, self-doubt, sensitivity, impracticality, or feeling misunderstood. So often, a life that, if you're new to heightened intuition and spiritual awakenings, it can make you feel like life is a little bit chaotic until you learn to balance that visionary awareness with more worldly experience. And I do truly feel that that's why a lot of people, you're either on one camp or the other, and there's no duality. Again, we have to redefine that, and duality has to come into harmony, because we either swing into, I'm not in any kind of spiritual camp because it's too woo-woo for me, or we swing the other way and we're like, oh, I just have to stay in seclusion and isolation and meditate on a mountain. So we have to bring that into balance. And that's what this is all working to help us through. So that heightened sensitivity here, or that overthinking, or fear if we do come out in speaking our truth spiritually, that we might make some kind of mistake, or it might be fear of some kind of isolation due to a unique inner worldview that we're now seeing or wanting to adapt. Or it could cause us to procrastinate any of it and just cause like emotional overwhelm, and so we just kind of get into a freeze. So we need to talk about how to ground spirituality, ground this frequency, this new energy, this new divine energy into a practical reality. And there's no coincidences. I don't believe in them. This eclipse is happening directly over the Hawaiian Islands. So let's dive into this a little bit, because in Hawaiian culture, the islands are not merely land masses, they're living entities. And they are imbued, they are embodied with mana, what they call their spiritual energy. And it has a huge ancestral significance. And spirituality in the islands represents the bridge between the physical world and the divine realm. This is exactly what is energetically occurring during this collective awakening, and what we're working through, what we're trying to do is to bring this divine spirituality and energy into our physical vessels, to our physical reality. So this is a time we must not abandon spirituality out of fear of becoming too woo-woo, too sensitive, too isolated in our beliefs, fear of revolutions, or fear of new insights. Instead, we just need to learn to balance spirituality within lived experience. Here, everything comes together. Politics, science, innovation, industry, technology, agriculture, business can all harmonize through a newly centered awareness. The other thing I want to share my perspective on is the Sabian symbol that's happening during this Virgo lunar eclipse, because it's at 12 degrees. And the Sabian symbol for that, it speaks about unveiling the mysteries of intimate relationships. Wow, right? I mean, if we're not seeing this symbolism play out collectively, if this doesn't kind of make you want to sit up and take note of some of these things, I don't know what will. So from my perspective, this is about including the sacred, or divine, in every passion we have. Every passion. So, for example, when we raise sexuality to the level of sacredness, there is a permission, right? There's an integrity then in how we act. So from that sacredness, we move beyond like just simple intuition or just words. It becomes a spiritual quest. It's where the veil becomes a metaphor for that which covers these mysteries. And when we try to pull off the veil, when we remove the veil to uncover where things have been acted out of power and greed, we begin to see this, at least as an example, of how it's revealed and how we then must act from this internal integrity and hold accountability. And we do that, I believe, through making up our own minds, finding our own wisdom, and using that wisdom, that inner guidance, that higher divine inner guidance and wisdom through love, through the heart, and applying it to uncover the mysteries in our lives. Here I have mysteries in quotations, where my hands are doing the mysteries. So yes, at times we need to receive information without immediately deciding whether it's truth, and not even using that previous example. This is just a generality here. Because it might be false, it might be out of context, it might be inappropriately timed. So we offer here instead to bring awareness to the sensitivity and the implications of that knowledge. And then over time, we spend time with it, right? We can sit with it, we can meditate with it, we can find our truth in it. Then we give meaning to the facts and the knowledge. And then it's transforming that into a more heartfelt wisdom. So how do we begin to untangle ourselves from this constant stream of information? I mean, books everywhere, podcasts everywhere, news feeds, interviews, traveling information at the speed of light. What I have experienced in my own journey is that choosing information means what it means for you, like how it lands, how it feels, and then stay with that meaning and feeling, and then make it work or work with it until it shows you otherwise. Other people's opinions, I believe, only take us so far. We must take the wisdom we gain and build something new from it. And we can do this by claiming our interpretations and consciously shaping how that meaning expresses in our own lived experience. And when it doesn't align to a deeper truth or a spiritual law, well, we will be redirected. We will be redirected. So there's a deeper movement happening here. And as we embark upon this blood moon, it's again about releasing that over-criticism, the over-analytical mind, the opinions of others, and the meanings we assign to information. This is a movement from the mind into the heart, into emotion, and then coming through that emotion. So once we get through Pisces, as we're into the more of the emotion, we even move past that. We even mature our vessels even more into a soul-led life. This is letting the soul lead through compassionate vision. And I emphasize in compassionate the word passion. This is through passion instead of through the egoic mind or those old, outdated, wounded emotions. We can retrain the mind. It's muscle memory. We shift from this analytical control of Virgo into a heart-centered expression. And we shift from that, then our south node, leaving behind any karmic baggage, shedding old skin, releasing insecurities during this Mercury retrograde until, I believe it's March 20th. And then as that retrograde and eclipse surface and shift out all of this, they surface and shift what has been hidden. Okay, so that's what we're seeing and feeling now. This cleansing will prepare us to move into our destiny, our north node. And it's expressed through that first new moon in Pisces. And that's going to represent more about magnetizing in our dreams and that compassionate vision. And this eclipse is also, it's opposing all of that powerful planetary alignment. It's opposite polarizations here because all of that is being grounded into and nourishing the earth and Gaia and nourishing us. And I believe it's happening over the Pacific Ocean because of water being the cleansing, and the North Node in Pisces also representing water here. It's mirroring this, okay, as above, so below. And this eclipse is that transformational energy supported through water. It's helping us to see how things are different now. It's having us go beneath the surface of things, and beneath the surface and requires our own inner looking at our own inner representation, as our own emotions are just energy and motion, yes, but it's also prosperity and fullness of life. So where there's an abundance of water, there's an abundance of new frequency available to us all, and we must immerse ourselves in it. So the work happens beneath that surface, beneath Gaia's waters and within our own depths. And we examine these limiting beliefs, these ancestral patterns, programs, labels, anything that binds us. And we have passed that Genesis moment of that planetary alignment where those energetic shifts occurred. We have. And so now we ask, how do we see differently? And how do we perceive the world through a new awareness? So this is a massive energetic tune-up. And it's really in my heart, from my heart to yours, it's what cosmic currents is here to offer as support. It's what I've been called to offer in service and support. And it's not to add to the noise, but it's to help you refine it. So from confusion to clarity, it invites us to question narratives and to realign and reclaim our lives. And not to be in the mode of a critic or criticizing, but just cleanse ourselves, purify ourselves, and then to step out of this confusion. And then we look beneath that surface in our daily life and we find out what's truly driving us. Like, what is truly driving you? What do you truly want? And then freedom will follow that new awareness. And we must stop dialoguing in separation. It's overwhelming out there. So if you're catching yourself in that, that's beautiful. Catch yourself in that and pull yourself out of that. It's no longer left versus right. Okay? And when we try to prove ourselves in that, we will repeat patterns. We're just spinning in the same circle. Okay, so instead of spinning in cycles, we want to spiral upward and ask yourself, what are you doing that you do not truly want to do? Or what are you doing simply because you have always done it? This is the transformational message. This is us being called into a master spiritual awakening. And we must ground this spiritual insight into lived experience. And we have seen what life looks like without spirituality. And at least if you have your eyes open, you have. And we've also seen what happens when spirituality becomes ungrounded. So we can't remain the monk on the mountain forever. Eventually we descend and we integrate purpose into daily life. This is the embodiment. And we have to try to not overthink every decision in pursuit of perfection, because that can lead to isolation and overwhelm. So we want to instead return to that midheaven, that octave of 7. It's a still point, a still origin point energy where motion returns to stillness, neutrality, balance, and a quiet authority. So here, contemplation replaces impulsivity. Awareness observes rather than reacts. And space forms between the stimulus and the response, the constant back and forth, chatter, trying to prove. Okay? Because we're in a world of constant media stimulation and polarization. So here, neutrality becomes the power. Stillness becomes the power. And when we master spirituality through embodiment, perspectives will widen. You will recognize that everyone carries a truth within their current level of awareness. And you'll become steady in motion, steady at work, steady with your children, steady in partnerships, right? Because you're steady within yourself. So in our collective field and the heart, this is an entrance into a realm without being entangled with anything, okay? And because on the other side of entanglement, we have beauty, creativity, co-creation, expansion. And we can see that the endings are just thresholds rather than any kind of losses. And here is where we see that clarity stabilizes. And then we integrate that 5D heart field of coherence and love and creative intelligence. It's heart-centered consciousness that can become embodied. And it doesn't have to be embodied forcefully. It can be embodied, as I've said many times, through joy and play. So from that still center and that octave 7, that midheaven point, that vantage point, love arises naturally. Spiritually and physical realities then harmonize. Okay? It's exactly like what the Hawaiian Islands and this energy, or the message, is trying to give us. And here, our frequencies become transmissions, and the heart becomes a living temple. And presence and prayer and relationships, they don't even have to be defined as that, because they're no longer separate acts. It's part of our state of being. This is where prayer is like a walking prayer, speaking prayer, communion with the divine embodied everyday lived experience. So from this devotion to this inner essence, alignment and harmony can unfold. Peace can take form. This is the true mastery of this lunar eclipse and what it is inviting us into. So much love.